So, 1 month from tonight, hopefully many of us will be gathered again here because it's exactly 1 month till we'll be holding our coffee house fundraiser here at Prince of Peace to support the Lutheran Immigration Refugee Service. I am sure that this is going to be a great and wonderful and successful event, partly because we've done this kind of thing several times before and we know how to do it right. In fact, I remember that one of our members made this point a number of years ago when we were getting ready for another coffee house. We had some great music planned and we knew people loved to get together, but this person said to me, you know, to make this a success with Lutherans, you got to have two things. You can't just have fun and music. You need to have food and you need to have a cause. Food and a cause. You got those things, it's going to be all right. And I was sure that she was right about that. You need to have food and you need to have a cause. And indeed, every time that we have had a successful coffee house, we have had both of those things. In fact, all of those things. We always have music and we always have entertainment, but we always have food and a cause. But it's not just Lutherans and it's not just coffee house events. There really is something about food and a cause that brings people together and helps bind people into community with one another. In fact, that's what Jesus did on the night before he died. He wanted to ensure that his followers continued to be bound together and to be able to be his living community in the world which would show forth and share the new life of the resurrection. And Jesus could have just told his disciples to gather together for fellowship once in a while. He could have taught them a song to sing together, or he could have developed a special prayer service that would remind them of the importance of what they were doing. But instead, he gave them a meal. And he told them that eating and drinking this bread and cup was the way they would participate in his death and resurrection. It was through this food and drink that they would receive the assurance of forgiveness. It was through the strength of this food that they would be empowered to share in the mission of making the resurrection a living reality in the lives of others. It was through the food and drink that Jesus bound them to the cause of God's redeeming love. Jesus gave them, and he gives us, food and a cause. He calls us together not just to listen, but to eat and to drink. Jesus calls us together not simply to reflect on the story, but to join in the cause of Jesus' new life. Jesus calls us together not just to feel love in our hearts, but to be strengthened with the food and drink of God's love, so that we can live love in concrete ways in the life of the world around us. On this night, we remember the night that Jesus gave us food and a cause. It's the first Maundy Thursday since 2019, which is frightening because it's the first Maundy Thursday of this decade, that we've been able to gather and share this food together. But while we've learned over these past few years that God can and will give us ways to be community and even to share food when we cannot physically be together, there really is something different and special when we're gathered together for the food and the cause of God's new life given in Jesus. And it's not just this night, it's really the reason we gather together every week, as Christians have for over 2,000 years. We gather together each week for food and a cause. Jesus calls us on this night and every night not to be content with religion as a head trip. He calls us not to view love just as a warm feeling in our hearts, and he calls us not to remember the story of his death and resurrection as simply another story from long ago and far away. Instead, it's through this meal that Jesus unites us to his death and resurrection. It's through this meal that we taste and experience God's love in our lives, and it's through this meal that we're strengthened each day to be people who participate in the cause of making Jesus' new life known in the lives of people around us.